So now we're going to go down to the render tab here. Clicking on this, we're going to bring up our settings for rendering. Now with our presets, we can change that to the correct ratio that we want, or resolution. We want to select the folder we want to save our render images in. And it's good to create a new folder for renders and save into that file. Now these options here you don't have to worry about whatsoever, just leave those ones alone. Make sure we have still image selected. Change the name to what you want it to be. Make sure you have PNG selected, and for the moment we'll untick include alpha. Now in the options, this is the quality of your render, and a good sample is 200. And you won't be using maximum time or custom control in this case. So we have add to queue on the output and options. I'm going to add this render to the queue. And we can see it here ready to go. Now the good thing about this is we can go back into the scene and change it to the other camera. And with these settings, the name is changed. It goes up by numbers, but all the settings are still the same. So then we can add this to the queue. And now we have both renders here ready to go. And what the queue does is just saves a snapshot of the settings that are used to make that render. Now I'm going to go back and select include alpha on the first shot. I'm going to add this to the queue. Go to the second shot, and we'll now add this to the queue. Now we have 4 images, with the bottom 2 will have transparency. Now what we need to do is select process queue, and our image will start to render. And we'll have our percentage in the screen. Now we'll render one image after another. And we can look at the time and the samples here. So we'll get to 200 samples, that was our settings, and that's how long it's taking. This will give you a good idea of how long renders will take. So it's about 48 seconds to render. And now we'll go to the next image. So with the renders done now, what we're going to do is create a new scene and make some adjustments to the one we currently have. So we'll untick those, and now we're going to render the other side. Save and lock. Go back to the other camera, rotate that around, save and lock. So now we're going to change the environment. And I'm going to change that to a studio one, and we'll find one that really highlights this particular texture. So again, we can go back into environment and rotate the lights around and the environment around and see what's best for this particular scene. We're going to increase the brightness, try some different ones. This one here is a bit too bright, too dark. And it's just finding the right one for your particular model and what best highlights your texturing. It's always have to have good shadows because that will really show some depth to your model. This one isn't too bad. Let's try this one again. I think we found the one that we want. Change that back to 0. And the brightness back down. So what we can do is lock the environment and no further changes can be made. Now we can go back between the shots. And again we can go back into rendering. All our previous settings should still be saved. First two renders we'll do won't have the transparency. And then we'll include the transparency on the second two. So we have our queue of our 4 images, and we'll process the queue. So with our rendering done, this is what our final renders look like. These are our first 2 renders. Now our second 2 renders, and these 2 have transparency. It will still render out shadows, which is why we have the grass here in the shadow, but the actual background will be transparent. So here we have the skin texture in the second one, and the next ones have transparency, but it has rendered the shadows. Now to have a better look at this, we're going to go to Photoshop, and I've just included a white background. So going back to this one here, you can see the grass a bit, but like if I turn off the layer behind it, it's just transparent. But when there's a color behind it, that's when you can see the grass texture come through. And it's only because of the shadow texture. And same with the other box here. It's rendered the shadow and nothing more, so the shadow itself is a bit transparent and a bit see-through, as you can see here with the white background turned on. So what you can do is render an image with a transparent background and add a background yourself in Photoshop if you really want to.